All right, we are live. So welcome back to DAP University. So we got lots to talk about in our live stream today. Okay, we're talking about a big problem for all of crypto, Web 3.0 in particular, that has come up in the conversation as of yesterday, and so I really want to address this. Okay, this is a big deal. And people talking about it everywhere. So we're talking about it today. We're looking at a lot of updates that have happened in our live stream since yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You're going to find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step from start to finish, then head on over to dapuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Culturized, Automatic Beats, Ethan, I am Jadine. I hope I'm saying that right. Let's say Natasha, Venture Warrior, Al, Chris, Ariane. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's talk about this problem for Web 3.0 and all of crypto, okay? Because, Web 3.0 has the promise of being, a censorship-resistant web. That's one of the big benefits of this entire technology in the first place, is that you can take something and put it out there on the internet that, could potentially be free from, other people just grabbing hold of it and shutting it down, or saying you have to change this part or manipulating it entirely, okay? And, this has really come up in the conversation, especially lately with the international events that are going on, where we're seeing, entire, countries be, sanctioned and cut off from certain financial infrastructure, about how, censorship resistant infrastructure is important, how, citizens themselves don't even have access to their own money. Like, this is really top of mind for a lot of people right now. And we're kind of seeing like why, censorship resistant technology is really important, is because it has this resilience against these types of things. Okay. And, outside of the sort of the hot spots that everybody's talking about right now, we're seeing this also come to light with other countries, all right, where, certain sanctions are imposed, and it's actually limiting from accessing decentralized Web 3.0 technology itself. Okay, this is a problem for Web 3.0, and I want to talk about this and what some possible solutions are. So we've got what really had been coming up in the conversation over the past couple of days is we've had people in certain countries say, hey, I can't access like OpenSea, all right? I can't use my MetaMask wallet, all right? And I can't use these decentralized apps, and find out like, basically there have been certain sanctions in place that restrict certain users from certain countries from using these types of things. Okay, now I'm gonna be very clear when we explain what the failure pointer here is. The blame does not necessarily lie on everybody who we think it does. I'm gonna clear this up. See, a lot of people saying, MetaMask is caved in. It's like censoring people from certain countries, or like OpenSea is, starting to censor people from certain countries. Like, that's not necessarily what's happening here. All right. So let's break this down and talk about what the real issue here is. So basically, like I was saying, there are a lot of people who have been reporting like, hey, I can't access certain dApps, like certain websites, because I'm in a certain country. People are like, hey, that's totally antithetical to Web 3.0 values. Definitely is. But a lot of people are blaming their wallets, they're blaming the websites, they're blaming certain apps, but that's not really the failure point. Okay. So first, so basically, whenever you're using a blockchain-based application, you have to talk to the blockchain somehow. And so, what is a blockchain? It's a peer-to-peer network of nodes that all talk to one another. They hold a redundant copy of all the code, all the transactions on the blockchain. Okay. And if you're using a decentralized website like OpenSea, for example, and you got a MetaMask wallet, you're talking to that, what you're doing is you're talking to the blockchain by way of the OpenSea website to some smart contracts, through multiple pieces in the chain. You've got your wallet, then that wallet connects to the website, which connects to the blockchain to an actual node itself. All right. And that node connection is typically handled by sort of someone else. Now, you could theoretically run your own node. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But one of the most popular node providers, which tends to be under the hood with MetaMask, is Infura, and that is actually where the failure point here is Infura complying with let's just actually read the article here. Let's be 100% clear with our words, so that we're not spreading fake news here. So basically, um, Infura closely monitors changes to U.S. sanction programs announced by the Office of Foreign Asset Control and narrowly tailors its international control to comply with the law. Currently, those regions are Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Syria, Crimea, and others. Okay. So basically, it basically says Infura's compliance with the law is required and does not necessarily reflect the service's views on any public policy issue, they added. Okay. So, first of all, like I said, let's just instead of like pointing fingers at who the bad guy is and like what people's certain decisions are, let's just talk about the inherent problem at hand. Because I'm not gonna sit here and like try to just like critique everybody's decisions based on compliance with laws. Because I mean, think about it. Put yourself in the position of somebody who like owns a company. Are you just gonna break the law, right? So I'm not like pointing fingers and say this person's a bad person because of what they decided to do. Let's just talk about the inherent problem at hand. There are failure points with our decentralized technology, but there are ways around this. Okay, there are ways around this. So this is a problem, but what's the solution to fix it? So the problem is not the websites. The problem is not necessarily the wallets themselves. You could use a wallet and you could potentially run your own node. Now that's a lot easier said than done. There's some other alternatives to that, which are instead of running a full node, you can run light clients. All right. There's other service providers besides Infura. There's other, and even if you have a bigger, service provider that has to continue to like kind of comply with these, laws, there's always gonna be room for smaller players to come up, maybe in different jurisdictions that don't have the same compliance regulations, and then they can offer the service where users can use this. So there's two different ways, in my opinion, really, to fight this problem, which is just free market competition for service providers at these sort of centralized levels, to where if one is now can't service people, then you can use a different one, right? That's part of it. That's part of the beauty of that aspect. The other aspect is basically users becoming more advanced in what they can do. Because think about it this way, this is one real promise of blockchain technology, which is it truly is censorship resistant. Like if you if you are an advanced user, like if you can write your own scripts and you can run your own node, like there's nobody who's ever going to be able to like prevent you from doing things on a blockchain. Like no app's gonna be able to censor you. No, I mean, maybe you have an issue with an internet service provider or something like that, but you can always change ISPs. You can go somewhere else, right? Like there's always ways. Like if you literally just like memorized your private key and had the coding skills, like there's nothing that they can really do about it. I know that's a pretty extreme and advanced example. I'm not saying that everybody needs to get to that place. But that is what's possible. Okay. So the best trade-off lies kind of somewhere in the middle. And, what that looks like to me is just decentralizing every level of the stack, where even if we have these sort of centralized pieces of technology, there's more options. All right. So that's a more decentralized thing. And that will happen, in my opinion, over time as this space grows. And as we sort of have, free market forces kind of play out. Now, there's probably going to be overwhelming leaders in each of those categories. Like that's just kind of the natural distribution of things. But, that market share percentage can change over time, like depending on, what somebody chooses to do in terms of policy, and that doesn't necessarily make them a bad person, right? Or a bad entity, a bad institution. It just means those are the choices that they made. And, that's going to have consequences in the marketplace. Okay. Based on user demand. So, it is a problem for Web 3.0. A lot of people don't realize that we have these sort of centralized failure points for this technology. It's not a deal breaker, in my opinion. It's not like it's not something that invalidates the entire value proposition by any stretch of the imagination, but they are there. And this is, we're seeing this kind of come up, seeing people talk about this. And those are some of the solutions or trade-offs, I should say, that can be made, in the short term. Now, one other kind of big long-term value proposition that can be had is making it easier for consumers or just like normal people to run decentralized, infrastructure. Now, a lot of people have kind of given up hope on this, but this honestly was something that many people were hopeful for many years ago, like back 2016, 2017. Many people were hopeful of like the ability to run light clients, like on your phone and stuff, like where you could actually have a native blockchain client that was a really small process. Okay. And so, I mean, a lot of people have given up on that dream. I don't think that that's a total pipe dream because, as we continue to develop, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I'll put it that way. Part of it's because that's not where the demand is. The demand is just to get in, start building applications, start using it. A lot of people don't care about decentralization as much as they honestly should. And so, we're not seeing teams just like, do that. And honestly, the other big fish to fry is to essentially ship better, more scalable layer one infrastructure, or just better scalable infrastructure in general before you try to attack that problem. But when some of these bigger problems are solved, I do think that can be a part of the long tail solution that we pursue with blockchain, is actually to continue to try to figure out how can we, create light clients or similar types of processes that run natively on people's low-cost devices so that they don't have to use other people's infrastructure, okay, and actually be a part of that network. And there'll be some things about certain layer one and other infrastructure roadmaps that make that easier. Another big thing that can possibly make that easier is doing so basically like one thing that will make that easier is basically the idea of Moore's law. Okay. So that's the idea that basically as time goes on, stuff that's run by like computers get cheaper. Okay. Now, I know people use this argument to talk about certain layer one blockchains, scaling faster and being better. And then over time, we just don't have to worry about scalability because Moore's law is going to fix everything. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But for the case of like, can we get to a point where we can run light clients on devices? I'm not saying Moore's law can fix that problem, but it can help make that problem better. Maybe that's like part of the story, is that the computer hardware gets a little bit cheaper relative to the cost of the resources needed to run that. Now, if we can reduce the amount of resources needed to run a really basic light client on a device like that, then maybe that could be a force multiplier to help make that possible and have a much more decentralized, censorship-resistant future, where you could sort of abstract away a lot of the details, and then normal people can have this advanced, sort of features inside of their own devices. So we'll see. Again, it is a problem for Web 3.0. It's not what many people think. It's not that the websites are, censoring people. It's not that the wallets are censoring people. It's actually the infrastructure underneath. And, if you want to fix the problem, you have to fix it at that level. Okay. And these are some possible solutions to doing that. So
what would you recommend someone, more of a general user, could do that was concerned about a scenario like this, but like they may not necessarily know directly like how they can make an impact?
So you mean like when you talk about making an impact, are you talking about just so that they can get unblocked and keep using apps, or that they can help fix this problem long term?
No, more like a short-term solution for their current scenario. If they're in America, let's just say, for example, but they heard that this happened through a service provider. What can they do to work around it?
You mean just so they can
yeah,
keep using the applications?
Exactly right.
Yeah, the easiest one to be able to switch node providers. That's the easiest one. So basically, like, inside MetaMask, let me just pull it up. Like, this is what people don't understand is, let me just pull it up. I'll show you. So let me hide my screen real quick. Okay. So basically, like if you look inside MetaMask, and you see these providers here, like you see you're connected to the mainnet. So basically, this is just like that's like the default provider underneath the hood's like talking to him. So you can just like change networks, and you can add a custom network, and then you can like just change RPC endpoints, and that will let you use whatever, node you want to. You can plug in your own node. All right. You could sign up for a free account on any other, node's website, and then just get their RPC URL and put it in there. If you've ever like used a bridge, you've had to do this, or you've ever used some more like EVM compatible chain, like you've had to do this. Like they don't support stuff like Optimism out of the box, or Arbitrum, or like, Polygon. Like if you want to get on Polygon, like most people, like, they got to find the settings to put in MetaMask to do that. So it's the same type of thing. It's just that you can connect back to, let's just say you wanted to buy NFT and OpenSea on Ethereum mainnet, but you don't want to use the default provider. You just find a different provider and stick it in there. Is that the kind of answer you're looking for?
No, that's perfect. Basically, that stems from like, a regular user that says, "Hey, I don't like this. I want to do something different," and what they can do.
That's the easiest way to get around the problem, in the short term.
Exactly right. And I think Michael Gordon just basically asked that same question. He said, "Can I change the access point from Infura to something on MetaMask?" And
yeah, that's basically it. So again, like I'm not trying to throw Infura under the bus, like by any stretch of the imagination here with this type of thing, but we do want to be very clear about where the actual failure point is. They've been open and transparent about that, okay, and they also say that compliance with laws is required to not necessarily reflect the service's views on any policy issue. So again, I'm not trying to like point fingers at anybody, throw anybody under the bus, but that's where the problem is, and how do we fix it? Well, these are some of the options.
Yeah, you lay down some really great solutions there. It was really well said. Taking notes and writing down on my end while you talk. So,
so somebody says, yeah, censoring with MetaMask, OpenSea don't KYC, so you should be able to use a VPN. I don't know for sure. That sounds plausible, but it's hard for me to test because I don't live in a sanctioned country and can't plug in my VPN. So that is a possible scenario here. Somebody's asking about VPNs. Could you just use that? Maybe. I don't know. It sounds plausible.
Got a great segue into our next segment if we're ready. Someone asked a great question about it.
What's the question?
It's a little broad. Might have fun with this one, but Ethan Wang asks, is blockchain a bubble?
Is blockchain a bubble? So that's a good question. Well, yeah, the short answer is no. Okay. The complex answer is it depends on when you ask that question. So we'll look at some of this here in a minute. But basically, I guess it depends on what you mean by a bubble in general. Like, is it literally just a financial bubble? Like, are all cryptocurrencies just a part of a financial bubble? I say let's start with that question because I think that's probably the question you're trying to get the answer to. Maybe not necessarily the technology itself. So I'm going to pull a pretty unsophisticated like cryptocurrency chart here, and like kind of talk about that. So I'll tell you my thesis on this, right? Like, I talk about this a ton on my channel, but I'll just repeat it, especially because there's brand new people all the time. So basically, my thesis is like, it's sort of the meme of like in it for the tech. That's true, right? But that doesn't mean that's exclusive from also wanting like see cryptocurrency prices appreciate over the long term and benefit from that, right? Like they're to me they're the same thing, because in my opinion, a lot of the really important high value cryptos essentially follow that. Like a lot of the stuff that we see the Bitcoin price over time or Ether price over time actually has to deal with like network adoption. Okay. And so, sorry, I got a little too zoomed in there. But the whole point is this, like, as you create technology that has, real benefits that people want to use, like we see people trading NFTs all the time, we see people using DeFi all the time now. That wasn't the case many years ago. As you create technology that has like real benefits that attracts people to use it, insofar as cryptocurrencies are linked with that technology because they have sound economics behind them, basically that can generate, that's more demand. And so over time, as you see that, network grow and more demand, then that can actually have, positive price appreciation on the cryptocurrencies themselves. Now, the question is, what's the fair value of cryptocurrencies based on that? Well, it looks like to me that it follows network adoption. And so, network adoption has trended higher over time. And even with the stuff that we've kind of seen here, sort of my thesis is that the really sharp motions upward, yeah, maybe those are bubbly periods, right? But the entire trend is still like up, and we're gonna find out over the coming months, what that looks like. But to me, there is still like a really core value line somewhere in that curve. Okay, it's really hard to know exactly where it is. We might have times of bubblish periods where we go over that, all right, and that maybe is a bubblish time, and then times where it's undervalued and it goes under that line. Okay, it's hard to know exactly where it is. You get lots of sophisticated TA people that try to tell you exactly where it is. Nobody knows for sure. But that's my view on it. Now, in terms of technology being an actual bubble, I mean, that's really hard to. That's hard to say. Like, it's hard to say that that's the case. Well, let me be very clear what I'm trying to say. I don't think so. And so why is that? I mean, if you look at it from an actual adoption metrics, you're talking about twice technology is being adopted twice as fast as the internet was in the 90s, late 90s. I mean, about the if you take it from measuring the same number of users, okay, and how fast it's growing a lot faster. So, you think about why that's the case. I mean, we have people who people are more used to adopting new technologies now. The world's more tech savvy than it was in the 90s. Okay, so it stands to reason that information can spread faster and adoption can spread faster. People are more tech savvy. There's also more people in general to actually use the technology, population growth, and just globalization, people, technology permeating every aspect of our life. The total addressable market's larger. So if total addressable market's larger and people adopt technology faster, then it stands to reason that it could be adopted faster than the internet. And also because there's powerful incentives behind it. The internet, had lots of people attracted to it as an investment opportunity as well. And that, brings in .com bubble. But those weren't necessarily the users of the internet itself, right? That was people who were just like, oh, I see this internet thing and I want to buy into tech stocks, pre IP or like IPOs, like were huge, right? But the difference with blockchain is that the users in many cases are actually incentivized financially. That's the big paradigm shift with Web 3.0 is the users are not just the users are the owners. It's not just the owners that don't care about the users. It's the users are the owners. And when you add that financial incentive in, that brings a lot more people in a lot faster. And so for all these reasons, I don't think that, blockchain, the technology itself is in some like massive bubble. I think it's a force that is not going to really stop and is going to continue.
Yeah, that was a giga-brain answer for sure. Really well said. I have just a short answer in that if you look at governments that are adopting CBDCs, for instance, are looking into research from CBDCs like Brazil is. If you look into major corporations incorporating DLT, that's distributed ledger technology, it's blockchain,
Right.
in their back end. There's also some unknown projects that you can find out about that deal with like green energy and utilizing DLTs for green energy companies, stuff like that. When you look at Bitcoin's proof of work consensus mechanism, obviously having like a large environmental impact, and then the potential solutions that can arise from such technology. In other words, technology to counteract Bitcoin's emissions is just another great reason as to, at least from my opinion, that it's not a bubble. This is real. This is real technology. It's real hardware making real impacts on a lot of very, big players, big amount of lives, a lot of people. It's pretty big deal.
It's a good point. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, there's so many reasons why I don't think it's a bubble. It's hard to like just name one. There's all these different things. That's some pretty good examples to add to what I was saying. I think central bank digital currencies are another massive part of this. One reason why that's such a big part of it is it's really easy, right, for a big, company that can stand to make a lot of money to come out and talk about how blockchain is the future, and then like create something where they can profit off of it. And then if it doesn't work out, they just sort of like back off and then act like they never said anything about it, right? I mean, you could even apply that maybe to what's happening with Facebook and Meta with the metaverse, but that's like, when you start having like your government say we want to create a central bank digital currency, that's because they're actually taking it very seriously. That's not like a that's not like a we're just gonna, get in and try to make crypto a thing. It's like, well, we gotta make crypto a thing, or like answer it in some way, or see the value proposition of it. We start to see comments by like Jerome Powell that stable coins can be efficient and provide like benefits to consumers. Like, hey, you gotta start taking that pretty seriously.
Awesome answer. Absolutely.
Let's do a couple more questions here. Somebody says keeping your money and livelihood safe is a security issue. It definitely is. I mean, crypto is not a perfect place. There are, securing funds is it's a tricky topic. We talked about this the other day, that there's no like easy answer of like, should you use a hardware wallet? Should you use an exchange? Should you use MetaMask? It really depends on your situation. It depends on a lot of stuff, what you're trying to do with the crypto, what your strategy is. I got some videos on my YouTube homepage to talk about that. We can dig into some of that for a second. This is all really common stuff that people always have questions about. So it's like, we'll talk about the pros and cons of some of these. So like, if you're gonna keep money on exchange, one of the one of the most common things is like, don't keep your money on an exchange, right? Not your keys, not your crypto. This was the adage from a long time ago when I first got into space. Some of that is like an enduring legacy of the past, right? But let's talk about some of that, right? So, because we saw some really horrible stuff happen in the past, like Mount Gox, and like all these other places, right? Because when I got into crypto, there were no decentralized exchanges. We had stuff like Ether Delta and like Fork Delta pretty early on, okay? But those things were so like, those things were super sketchy, right? They were proof of concept, really. And there's no hate to any of those applications. We needed to go through that phase to figure out what's going to work and what didn't work. But like the real only way to trade crypto was to get on these centralized exchanges. And we had Coinbase, but it was still pretty early in Coinbase. But this was pre-Binance. I don't think people realize this is pre-Binance. It was when I got into space. And so you had all these different cryptocurrency exchanges out there, and a lot of them were just like kind of scrappy. We weren't really sure if you're going to be able to get your money out, or if it was going to like potentially shut down at some point, or just delist a coin that you had in your wallet, right? But the reason people use it is they took the risk, because it's like, okay, you might lose some money, but you also might make a lot of money, because the name of the game back then was like, all right, let's buy coins and then let's hope that they get listed on an exchange. Like, it's totally different than it is now, where you have decentralized exchanges where anybody can like take tokens and add liquidity to the pools, and like, okay, boom, you've instantly got liquidity and tokens can launch overnight. Back then it was like, have an ICO, pay an exchange like 7 figures to get listed, and then like hopefully it works. And then, you have to go find this exchange, and you have to go through the KYC process if they require it. Some places didn't require it. And so that was the sketchy days of early like cryptocurrency exchanges. And so you had these horror stories of the exchanges just like closing down, you know what I mean? Delisting coins, getting hacked. And those problems are becoming less and less common these days across bigger, more reputable exchanges. Now, we're not out of the woods, okay? You were seeing sanctions. We're seeing, people get censored, all this type of stuff. So there's no guarantee that like you can't do that. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people are going to leave their money on exchange anyway. So the real question is, how much money? Okay, is it your entire life savings? Probably not a good idea. You know what I mean? But if you're talking about some amount of money that you want to use for trading or just like short-term stuff, and like if you lost it, like it's not going to set you years back, or like, you know what I mean? Like, for some of the bigger, safer stuff, again, it's not financial advice. There are definitely risks associated with this, but me personally, for smaller amounts, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Okay, that's just me personally, what I'm thinking. All right. Same thing with like a MetaMask wallet. Like, if you're gonna have a hot wallet, like, should you keep money in MetaMask wallet? So my answer is, for me personally, this is my own decision. It's like, if someone was saying, if it didn't set me back a bunch of time, part of it's, think about it in terms of time. How much time would it take you to recover everything that you lost, right? Because your time is really your most valuable commodity here. You can never get back the time that you lose on this earth, right? It's only non-renewable resource. So think about it in terms of time. How much time would it take you to lose all that, get all that money back? And let's say you're in the middle of a good time where money feels easy because, crypto is going up. Okay, well, think about the times when that wasn't the case. And what if you go back to square one? How long is it going to take you to get all that together? And if you become a blockchain developer, it could probably happen a lot faster. But think about it in those terms, right? And then, whatever that rule is for you, do that. If, in terms of hardware wallets, maybe you want to keep certain things in cold storage and hardware wallets that you don't actively use. Because, think about it. People feel a lot of false insecurity with hardware wallets, but you can still sign transactions on the wrong website, especially when you scroll on that hardware wallet and you see all this gobbledygook about like the transaction confirmation. Like, nobody reads that stuff. And so you could still like sign a bad transaction and your hardware wallet could get drained, right? So maybe you keep interactions, good operational security is to have multiple wallets, but then you got to keep up with backups of multiple wallets. Like, every solution is not really a solution. It's a trade-off, and you really have to pick your problems and which problems do you want to have and what's the most reasonable trade-off for you. So that's why there's no easy answer to that question.
Rockstar. Yeah, you knocked that one out of the park.
Okay, so I need to wrap up for today. I've kind of gone a little bit long-winded on some of this stuff, but looks like our stream retention was actually better on this one than normal. I'm looking at the YouTube stats here, so I guess it worked. So hopefully we had some value for you all today. Again, these are some of the problems with Web 3.0, with everybody's talking about. This is what some of the solutions are. I do see you see value down the road where we can have, but this problem can be made better. Okay, despite what's happening, and there's a lot of conversation about sanctions and censorship and everything, and we want to build censorship-resistant technology to prevent this problem. And those are some of those solutions that I talked about earlier in the video. So that's all we got for today. If there's something you want to talk about in live streams, you can definitely ping Walshy on Twitter. You can see his handle there. If you're fascinated with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Link on my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you'd like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master's shortcut entirely, I should become a blockchain master step by step, start to finish, over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.